Hey, what's everybody? What's up, everybody? I'm here with Marcin, who's the CTO at AngelBlock, and we're going to be, like every month, answering some of your questions. Um, what's up, Marcin?
All good, all good here. Yeah, I will be supporting you tech-wise. So let's go through the questions. Let's see what we have here. Maybe I'll ask the first question for you. Since we have one question about relaxing the milestones from Crypto Priest.
Yep. So it was a pretty good question because it's actually in line with something that we've been discussing during we had these workshops. We're going to have more workshops in May, but we had workshops earlier in April to basically make sure that we're in line with how the market is currently moving. So I believe that, and I know Marcin agrees with me here, if you have a crypto protocol, if you're working in crypto and you're working on assumptions from, a year or two ago, and you're not trying to acclimate to current market conditions, that can be very, very problematic. So we understand that, some of the conceptions that we had were implemented 2 or 3 years ago, and getting feedback from community members, getting feedback from potential projects that are about to raise is very, very vital. So we are making some changes on the protocol level, essentially, to better position ourselves with where the market currently is and where the market is, in our opinion, heading in the next few months. So one of those things is essentially relaxing some of the ways that milestones work. We don't want to go away from milestones at all, like fully, because I just don't think that would be very constructive. And we're essentially implementing something that we're calling a milestone zero, which is an unlock for projects immediately after the raise, which is pretty important because a lot of these projects, they have milestone items such as creating liquidity pools on decentralized exchanges or using some of that capital for centralized exchange listings or for something else. So it's pretty vital that they have access to some of that capital earlier on, in order to streamline the milestone process and talking with potential startups. We're also most likely going to be implementing a hard milestone for, like, milestone 1 is probably going to be a hard milestone that everyone has to go through, which is going to be TGE. Because from our analysis and some of the case studies we've done internally, we just know that some of the bad players in this space, they simply just don't TGE, right? Or they just delay it indefinitely. So having that as a hard set, firm milestone 1 can also be very, very helpful for just to streamline the entire process. So essentially having 2 milestone unlocks that in theory can be pretty close to each other, which is milestone 0 and milestone 1, which helps projects get access to that capital earlier on, rather than, having it spread out over, 6-12 months, which could be a risk factor for some projects. But it can also streamline this process in a way that simply makes it easier to list on this protocol. So that's kind of the approach that we're currently taking, and we should be rolling that out pretty quickly.
I'll maybe just add 2 cents from my side, that we are also evaluating something like a framework to analyze the size of the rise and the type of the rise, and have various requirements regarding milestone for like different buckets, I would say. So we can evaluate if startup is a smaller type startup that needs more capital at first, but has some more risk at the same time with delivering those. And depending on the risk assessment which we'll be performing, we might try to offer various requirements and demand more milestones or less milestones from given startups accordingly to their size and their fundraising size. Yep.
Well said. So I'll dive into the next question from Dr. Alba, which basically pertains to the new product launch that we have, which is the OTC.
Yeah, I'll gladly answer that, since I'll give you some tech side description how actually Rises works on our platform. So we have pretty configurable and flexible the model which stand behind the rise on the blockchain itself, and it can be parameterized for given rises. So we are very flexible with, if given rise, for example, is a project which doesn't have a token yet, or the token exists, or if the token is on another blockchain, or if there are any other requirements for hard cap, soft cap, etc. This is all flexible on our side, and we will be even introducing OTC deals as, I would say, new domain similar to Rise, which will follow some of the steps which Rises follow. So, for example, when Rise starts, of course, we have an investment stage. After investments, we are broadcasting the finish of Rise on various chains, depending where the token is. And after that, we have the voting and milestones logic. So for OTC, the main difference between the OTC type of race and normal standard race, when we collect the tokens and perform the milestones and hold the validation, we just basically be removing the voting mechanism for OTC deals. So you can imagine an OTC deal as a process where user can invest, where token exists, when we have the token at special price for the users, but after the investment, there is no voting, there is no delivery of features. 100% of tokens are unlocked to the users and follow the vesting schedule defined for given OTC deal.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here as well to kind of give the other side of the story. So same with seed rounds. OTC deals have not been massively available to retail. I'm in a few OTC groups and I know the sizes that usually go around. So let me actually start with like what OTC is, because maybe some people just don't know. It's so OTC pertains to a live token. So it's not a pre-sale, it's not a seed round. Token is live. There is usually some form of lockup that is, in one way or another, it's entangled with the size of the discount, right? So an OTC is outside of the order book, it's over the counter. So it's usually like, that's how Michael Saylor usually buys Bitcoin, right? Because he buys so much Bitcoin that it would move the price. If you're trying to buy 20 million worth of an asset, it's disadvantageous to try and do it through an order book, because you're inflating your own price and you yourself are buying at a higher valuation than you would like, because your buys are pushing it up. But there is also a mechanism where people simply sell either lock tokens, right? So you're overtaking someone's like wallet. Overtaking is such a bad word, I don't know why I use it. You're basically like taking over somebody's wallet in an OTC deal, and something can be locked for like 12 or 24 months. So retail is usually locked out of these kinds of deals because of the size. So a lot of times these OTC deals are, like 100K, 200K, 500, a million, and you either find a buyer for all of it, or you just find someone else, right? Like you can't buy a fraction of an OTC deal. Nobody really wants to deal with you if you're like, oh, well, you're selling $1 million worth of Solana at negative 40% current market price, but I would only like $500 of it, not $1 million. Like, you're just wasting someone's time. But if you're doing this from a protocol standpoint, you're actually dealing with, like, which is exactly what we're doing, you're going to be dealing with essentially a fractionalized OTC deal. So from a user standpoint, it's going to look a bit similar to how raises are conducted. However, you can finally buy, like, if we're going, like, I'm already in talks with a bunch of potential partners for this, you can buy $500 worth of an OTC deal available on AngelBlock, right? Or you can do 1K or 2K, and you won't otherwise really have access to those deals. Why this is important for us going forward is we can now work with companies and projects that have a launch token, which is not something that was done before, because you can't do a fundraise at community round valuation or seed round valuation when the project is launched and you can have, minus 10 plus 10 volatility on a given day for a project, right? And like, it's just not, you have a deal and it's, X price, and you go see that it's, on CoinGecko, it's going up and down like this. And there's going to be one day where that is a good deal for you, and there's going to be another day where that's an absolutely horrendous deal for you, right? Because that's just the nature of raising pre-valuation versus post-valuation when a token is launched. So it's really, really cool to see, because we're essentially being able to work with companies that were too mature to, let's say, raise on AngelBlock, having a launch token. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for users to essentially expand their portfolios.
Fully agree. So just to summarize, like from the user perspective, they will see the same UI, they will see just OTC type of raise, and the whole user experience should be very similar for them. They should see all familiar things. Just the process at some point skips the voting mechanism and allows to claim the tokens without the need for investors to vote. Awesome. And maybe we can go to the next question, which comes from actually a bunch of people from CryptoPrease, Branch, and PTU.
Yeah, so this is kind of like this question is like an amalgam of a few questions that we saw pop up in community, but the overarching theme is basically it's just biz dev, right? And the overarching theme of biz dev. So I'll start with something that isn't too nice, and it's actually, I've been re-listening to some old Up Only episodes, so Kobe and Ledger, and there was this like gigabrain moment. I was going to the gym last night, and I was listening to like a 3-year-old episode of Up Only, and there was Crypto Calio was there, Rookie, Loma, Trader Main. So very much big brain moment, and they were talking about pre-sales, and essentially like, to quote Kobe, I'm not fully in agreement with him here, but to quote Kobe is, if you have access to a pre-sale, and he's talking to, the listeners of Up Only, it usually means it's a shit pre-sale, because why on earth would you have access to it? And there is some truth to it, because if you have, the Sequoias and A16Zs that you can raise from, and yet you're raising from people that you've never even met, it puts into question the quality of that token sale, right? And that's happened a few times with us, where we're talking with somebody that's like, we think is interesting, or, like, let's see how this goes. And I actually had one project like that who just raised way too many red flags for me personally. And on their, I think it was like on their deck or something, they said that they were confirmed listings, and it was like Bybit, MEXC, BitGet, KuCoin. I was like, but you only raised 400K, because they told me, like, I'm like, how much have you raised? They're like, oh, we raised 400K. I'm like, then how can you say that you're going to list on Bybit, KuCoin, which that by itself is probably going to be like $1 million? Like, oh, because we haven't paid them anything, but they said that if we want, we can launch there, which is just like, it sounds like BS. No offense to that project. Like, I hope everything works out for you, but like, that's just a huge red flag, and we're never going to process anything like that. And we really want to bring deals that, first of all, we feel comfortable listening, and we would like to invest in ourselves. And sometimes the more information we get from a project, the more orange or red flags it raises. And it just sparks the question, like, okay, but why are you trying to raise from our community? Is it because you can't raise anywhere else, or are you a good project? Do you see the value add in listing on AngelBlock? So a lot of these times things just fall through, and a lot of these times our due diligence just works, and we believe that, okay, like this is actually a huge red flag, and having this raise available to our community members. I know there was some question about like iLock and Darkverse. With Darkverse especially, like I've answered this question on community, like nothing has changed. Like we're just waiting for them to give us the green light to be like, hey, we want to raise our community round, and then we can work together. Like nothing has changed on that front. People started like freaking out because the Darkverse launched their DAO page, and from what I understand, it's just like a way to govern their DAO, nothing else. But people are like freaking out. I was like, oh my god, what does this mean? Like I don't think it means anything. I think you guys are like reading way too much into this. When it comes to iLock, like I'll be honest, they just stopped like responding, and like I don't know, like everything just stretched out. Like we were talking about doing a raise back in like November, and we didn't even know like if the token is on Aleph Zero or Arbitrum. So I don't know, like they haven't launched yet. So like, hey, they want to talk, like we can talk, but there's just like a lot of confusion with the Republic sale. Like, are you buying an Aleph Zero token? And if you're buying an Aleph Zero based token, then why are you only giving an EVM address? So I don't know. It seems like a lot of confusion for something that should be a bit more simple. But I know that there's some other feedback forms that were about projects that we felt good about. I'm not going to name any names, but like there were a few. But it came down to milestones, and I think it's important here to discern. Like we talked about milestone 0 and TGE as a milestone, but if a project that isn't like highly oversubscribed, that is actively raising, and they're just like, oh no, we want all the money up front, like that's a bit of a red flag as well. Because if you break it down, like, okay, you get majority of funds after even milestone one voting, which for some companies can be in 2-3 months, then it's a bit of a red flag for us, and we usually just try and find something better, to be honest. Because if 50 or 100K, if a project is like super pushy for it, and it's literally a matter of like 30 days, then it's usually like at least an orange flag for us, especially since it's not like we're keeping the money, it's all on chain. So there's just some things that come about during these regular biz dev talks that shed some additional light on any given situation. And sometimes we're like, okay, cool, we want to process. And sometimes we're just like, a bit too many like orange flags or something of that nature to feel comfortable with a given deal. But we basically, like what we did with the script raise, we just announced a new raise today. So you can, if you're in Telegram, you probably saw that. But we feel good about finding deals that we would like to invest in ourselves. And we feel good about getting deals that are already heavily oversubscribed. Like, Script was a good example of that, because there's actually demand for it. And we don't, like, I know a lot of launch pads are just going to list absolutely anything that's available. But the reality of it, especially now, the market, took a slight downturn. Things are slowly, like, just kind of plateauing just a tiny bit. And the question is, if everything's going up, then every project's great. But when the market is tested, like it's currently being tested, do you feel comfortable with your portfolio and with your holdings? And if the question is no, then that's not a good position to be in, essentially. And I sleep much better at night knowing that I would have money in projects that I know are going to keep building. Like there's one deal I didn't take during the bear market, not to deviate too much from this topic, but it was through like this, I don't know, like decentralized VC or what have you. And people were like super excited about it. And I've just been watching the price action, and the market hasn't been that bad, but they launched at the raise was at 10 cents. And currently the project is, some investors just got their tokens like recently, and the price is 0.001. Like you're down 90% on a seed investment. And what's worse is the project is doing 5 to 15K daily trading volume on a pretty decently sized centralized exchange, which means it's probably going to be delisted very soon on that particular exchange. So it just goes to show you that if you put your money into the wrong project, even if the market conditions are decent, you can still lose a lot of your money, even if there's like some kind of protection. And that's just simply something, if we can control it even to a particular like degree, then we want to control it. Like we want to be seen as a good player, and we're going to do everything we can to be a good player in this space. So we will never, if there's just multiple red flags in a project, multiple red flags, and it's even listed on some other places, but we will take the conscious decision not to list it. Because if everything is screaming no, I think it's our responsibility to be like, okay, no, like this just looks like a very bad deal, and we think that people might get hurt. And the last thing that we would want is to contribute to, first of all, a bad actor raising, or contribute to our own community members losing money. It's just that simple. And I know a lot of people, they're comfortable losing some money in the perspective of making some money. But you know, if the percentage breakdown is you might 2-3x, but there's a 96% probability you're going to lose it all, you know, that's a horrible trade. Like no one in their right mind is taking that trade. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on, you know, why some forms have been sent out, why some things haven't been listed, why some things are taking slower. Like we're revamping that entire system and our approach, but that still doesn't mean that we want to list shit. Like sometimes you don't know until it's too late that something isn't a good project. All right.
It's not,
oh, you want to add something? My bad.
yeah, can I add? Yeah. I would just say that it's not an art to basically accept any project that applies to us. And it doesn't take that much hassle to start this project fundraising when we have all the details from that project. And we could just take our fee cut and forget about it and just leave our users on the ice, right? But this is not where we are going for. And as you mentioned, this is very well summarized with the sentence that we list only project in which we would be comfortable investing on our own. So fully agree on this topic, and I think that's the philosophy of the platform, that even if we got plenty of projects applied, we are picking the best ones to basically create a healthy ecosystem where people can invest and don't have that much risk to tackle with. And we do not forget about the users after the investments from both ends. So we still have contact with the people from startups, and we still be having direct contact with our investors on our platform.
Absolutely. So, and that brings us to the fourth question, which was asked by Brunch. So, Marcin, if you could kind of go into fees, staking, and APY shortly.
Sure. So, as I see, the question focuses on quite fee, which is, of course, the bottleneck of Ethereum at the current stage, because we have higher gas prices due to rise of popularity and rise of the price of the asset, which is the base foundation of the chain of the payments. And this is something which we are thinking of and are aware of. It was a conscious decision when we were planning, because it's very important to choose the right ecosystem where you want to deploy, where you have given audience, when you have given factors which you need to take into consideration. I know that Ethereum is also actively being evolved over time, and new improvements like sharding will be introduced, which might affect the gas prices. But something what we are thinking, which is in our roadmap, but it's not in, I would say, the next 3-4 months. It's something for the next part of the year, or maybe next year. There are different ideas how we can tackle the expansion of the platform, and one of them considered in past was gas in toll, that we wanted to introduce to take the payments of gas from the user and introduce toll utility, which could be used to aggregate transactions for the users and lower down the prices. So potentially we could basically batch user requests and cut down the fees to the minimum and perform transactions aggregated. Another idea was actually to more decentralized toll over the chains and make it available on other networks, not only ETH, but potentially factors to consider, this is something not confirmed at the moment, but factors to consider where toll can be moved apart from ETH is also potentially either A0 or some layer 2 or some layer 1, which has cheaper gas prices. Basically, we are starting to think about the protocol of AngelBlock as the platform where it basically lives around the chains. So we want to support for sure all of the chains, despite if they are EVM or non-EVM. And for sure, we will be optimizing the gas usage for the users because in the end, it will no longer be satisfactory for us to only stick with ETH and have all of the infrastructure there. For sure, there are many cheaper ecosystems, and I would say we have the tech capabilities for that, but still there is a need for development and proper planning for those features. I can tell only that those are potential scenarios. Nothing is confirmed yet. We got strong opinions and research on that, but this is something that we'll be having in cooking for the next half a year or more. So not sure what I can say here regarding the timeline or specific solution or answer, but potentially moving to other tech that would allow users to optimize the cost is definitely one of our on our interest spots right now. This is something that is hot right now on our own timeline, and we are actively trying to pick something that will work out the most for the future. The field is also very dynamic, so technologies can change from one year to another. Like 1 year ago, we had completely different environment than we have right now. A lot of technologies pop up. Even during the development of our internal bridge for A0, we are seeing that official bridge from A0 is also slowly being released to the testnet at this stage, but it's a very rapid field, and we are also trying to stay to leave some flexibility to us to basically pick the best solution for the user at given time and conditions, I would say.
Absolutely. I agree with your big brain, Marcin. All right, I think that wraps everything up. We answered some of your questions. I know that some of them were a bit more bunched together, but I hope that gives you some clarity into where we currently are and where everything is headed. So yeah, thank you. And we'll be probably changing the format just a tiny bit going forward. We're still going to keep this monthly, just with a few tweaks. So thanks again, Marcin. Thanks everyone for joining, and
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.